Well, everybody, welcome to this month's Silicon Slope Logan chapter event. I'm Blake Kohler. I guess, your MC for today. And before we get started, I just want to go through some really quick announcements. The most important being we have next month's event, which will be on September 29th. Might be a lie, but there should be a link to it in chat. But we'll have Jim Cantrell, who is one of the co-founders of SpaceX. He's a Utah State graduate. He's coming to talk to us about the various other space companies he's founded. So it should be an exciting one. I believe we're capped at 150 attendees right now. Obviously, you can grab it in recordings, but I would imagine you'll want to RSVP to that fairly early. So jump on that. And then also, Chase is posting in chat about it, but we also have the Slack group for the Logan Silicon Slopes chapter. It's been fairly good and active, and we'd love more people to participate. So if you're looking to grow your company, grow your network, any of those types of things, jump on there. It's a great place to be able to meet new people that are physically close to us and see more of what's going on inside of Cache Valley. Okay, great. Looks like we figured out our audio issues a little bit here, and we'll just jump in. So we're really lucky to have Mark and Andy join us today. I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves here in a second and explain where they are and where they come from. But the impetus or the idea behind this is, there's lots of entrepreneurs here in Cache Valley, and there's a bunch of them in the Silicon Slopes chapter. And we want to just highlight some of the resources that are available to those entrepreneurs, really depending on what stage of life their business is at. And that's why we've invited both Andy and Mark on here. So why don't we start? Andy, would you mind introducing yourself and sharing the organization you come from and just briefly about what you do?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Andy Thunell, and I'm the program coordinator in the Center for Entrepreneurship at Utah State University in the Huntsman School of Business. Just a little bit about myself, my background. I was born and raised in Cache Valley. I love it so much that I've stuck around. I've spent a couple years outside of Cache Valley, and that was for an LDS mission. I served in Guatemala. I attended Utah State with an undergrad degree in business and Spanish from the Huntsman School, and met my wife here. We're married for 14 years. I have 4 kids. When I was attending Utah State, right before I graduated in 2009, I started my first business, which is still something I operate today. It's called Rapid Progression Kayak School. And that's kind of what kind of drove me with that affinity I have towards entrepreneurship. I've started multiple businesses. After I graduated, I actually had the opportunity to work in industries I didn't ever see myself working in necessarily after graduating, just to kind of chase those entrepreneurial endeavors that I was focusing on. So after post-graduation, I worked for a few years as a manager at a fast food restaurant. And I also after that, I worked in construction, working on LDS temples for an outfit here in Cache Valley. We would travel and do the installations on some rails and some things we fabricated. Anyhow, 2015, I was hired on here at the Huntsman School, and I've been here ever since. I decided I wanted to pursue an MBA with my affinity towards business, and so I completed that in 2018. And I guess we're going to kind of go a little bit later on into kind of what each of our organizations do. But I oversee basically a lot of the marketing here in the Center for Entrepreneurship. A lot of what we do is student-driven, student-focused. But I manage a team of interns, and I oversee an international internship program as well. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy. Mark, how about you?
Thanks, Andy. Mark Alexander. I also went to Utah State, graduated up there, went back for some master's work. And then I went right into business from there. I have started and grown and sold a half a dozen businesses. I have 4 patents, maybe 5. No, I think 4 patents, some trademarks, a few things like that. And about 3.5 years ago, I accepted this position at the Bridgerland Technical College, mainly as a new chapter. I don't know, those of you who have done a lot of entrepreneurship work, it's a lot of energy and a lot of work. And when you just keep doing it over and over, I was ready for a change. So this has been really kind of fun. I look at it a little bit as a give back. I would have loved to have had a place that I could come, especially on my first business or two, just to even bounce some ideas off of someone to see if I was moving down the right path. So it's been kind of a fun new chapter. It's been enjoyable. I also grew up in Cache Valley. I have 4 children, and we live in Paradise. And I enjoy a lot of outdoor activities: water skiing, snow skiing, mountain biking, hiking, that kind of thing. So that's me.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark and Andy.
Yeah.
I guess the easiest way to do this, I guess, is we'll jump back in. I'll start with Mark. Can you explain some of the resources that are available for entrepreneurs at the Entrepreneur Resource Center at Bridgerland? And then when you're done, we'll jump to Andy and let him try and one up you there a little bit.
It's only fair. We'll just call Andy the winner right now, and then we'll move forward.
No, I don't think that's a good idea.
No, in reality, Bridgerland Entrepreneurship Center, which was once called the Business Resource Center, we've kind of evolved that now this last year or year and a half. In reality, the Bridgerland Entrepreneurship Center, or the BEC, we do work with the Center for Entrepreneurship at Utah State, and our intention is to continue to develop that relationship so we can become more and more collaborative back and forth. And we've sent not only students back and forth to each other, but members of the community with business interests back and forth to each other as well. So yeah, very symbiotic relationship. The Bridgerland Entrepreneurship Center, we do, it's hard to summarize it, but general consulting, and it's all free. All the consulting is free. So whether you're a member of the community, a student, someone starting a business, considering selling a business, merging, you're welcome to come in and talk to us. It's free, and you can maybe glean some information from our discussions. That's probably one of the primary things. We also have some evening, I would call them little gathering seminars where we'll invite in an expert. Like pre-COVID, we had someone come in that was an expert on Amazon sales. And it's just a $10 class. You come in, eat a sandwich, listen to an expert. We had someone else come in on SEO. We had those types of things. And this moving forward, we're also going to increase our events as we can. We're kind of second spiking here, but as we can, we want to increase our events and have more of a, we're really trying to establish a collaboration of community, students, the college and the university here in town, all together to create a bit of a hub. So there's that. There's also, we have incubation space for small businesses that are kind of looking for that next move out of their house into a inexpensive space where they can have an office. Right now we've only got 2 and they're both full, but we're expanding. We're bringing on 4 more offices and 4 big spaces. I'll talk more about that as we get going. And then we also have an incubation kitchen, which is, I understand is a little strange when you first hear it, but a lot of entrepreneurs starting up in the food world, if they want to develop we have one company that does protein powder, for example, that they sell their protein powder online for after you work out, you have the protein drink. We have candy companies that are packaging and shipping across the United States, etc. Well, you have to have an FDA approved kitchen, a health department inspected kitchen to get in some of the associated foods and things like that. So that's what that kitchen is there to facilitate. So someone doesn't have to roll the dice on $50,000 for a kitchen just to see if their product is actually viable. So did I miss any, Blake? Can you think of any others?
No, not that I know of, at least. And interesting that incubator space. So there's 2 of them. We occupy one of them, so I can vouch that it's pretty awesome. Sorry, we take the space already for people, but it's
you lose Blake.
But it's a an interesting thing that finding that type of resource was really hard for us.
I'm guessing you can hear me, Mark, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, did
okay.
you leave me?
Well, I guess while we're waiting for Blake to get back on, were you done? Do you want me to jump in and kind of talk about what we focus on?
I can actually hear Blake. Oh, he just disappeared.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry. I was listening to Blake, Andy. Oh, looks like he's hopping back on.
Let's see.
There he is, okay.
Back? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I could hear you all the way along.
Oh, man,
Andy couldn't.
Oh, good. Well, I was just saying how great it is to have those resources for entrepreneurs, and now I'm curious to hear what Andy's got, because I might go partake on some of that myself. So why don't we jump to Andy and go from there?
Yeah, sounds good. I guess, yeah, a lot of what we do is student focused and student driven, but that's not to say that we don't have, outreach to the community. And I think it's important, I guess, to understand, why we exist, the Center for Entrepreneurship and what we do. So we're huge proponents of entrepreneurial leadership. A lot of times when students hear the word entrepreneur, they are some that are outside the business school become disinterested because they think that it's not applicable to them because they don't want to start a business. But that's the truth is we really focus on entrepreneurial leadership because the reality is it doesn't matter who the individual is, the student we help or individual in the community. Every person's going to work for an organization, right? Which is a business or a nonprofit or something, or they're going to own their own. And the only way that they're going to succeed is by creating value for the end consumer or their customers or for their boss, and other employees. And so with that in mind, we do focus on, creating small businesses and helping students launch those. And so there's kind of three main focuses. We have curriculum, which is kind of the knowledge base, teaching students how to launch businesses, what they need to know, just the know-how of doing that. Once they receive that knowledge and, take those classes, we're huge proponents of experiential learning. And so we have internships where they can apply that learning. One of them is called the SEED program, Small Enterprise Education and Development. And so students, once they learn, these skill sets of entrepreneurship, they can go and intern for a semester abroad in developing nations and help people break the poverty cycle essentially by using, entrepreneurial skill sets by starting businesses. And then one of the other things we focus on is funding. We have a lot of competitions throughout the year for students where we will give, cash prizes, for them to develop their business idea and to keep growing. And so with that said, some kind of cool things is we're the #1 minor in the Huntsman School of Business. Our minor actually has over 60% of the students that take our classes are non-business students. So it's a really awesome way to, we just tell students, why don't you go ahead and focus on the majors that you're currently in and let us supplement that with entrepreneurship, because all of us could benefit from those skill sets. So with that said, there's ways to get involved. And I think there's another question you're probably gonna ask a little bit later about that, Blake. But, there's opportunities for community members to take classes. We have a certificate program they can enroll. We also have classes they can come and attend that are free. We have a summit coming up, which is specifically for the community that I'll talk about. And so that's kind of like us in a nutshell, what our focus is.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy. And the next question, kind of for both of you, that I'm really curious about is, we all know that entrepreneurship has kind of a broad range of where you may be at, from kind of the ideation, I have an idea, to the, the operations, to the, I want to get out of this thing. Like, at what stage should someone come and talk to either of you groups, right? Like, if you're a student or you're whoever it is, and they're talking to you, when should they come and chat with you? Why don't we start with Mark, and then you can jump to Andy after that.
Really anytime. I would invite someone to come and talk before they spend money initially. We find that there are quite a few mistakes that happen. I've made them myself early on, that you start spending money before you have a full vision of where you're going, and get some advice from others who have been there. So I would say, as you get the idea, but then several steps throughout, it's really nice to have someone you can come and talk to. So I would say in any time that you feel like you need or would like a third party, impartial, any kind of input there.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Andy, how about you? When should people come and talk with you guys?
I'd agree with Mark. I think at any stage of the startup process or in your growth, your company, that you're launching, the reality is I think it's just important to have those, those communication channels with other individuals, besides friends and family. I think getting input from other individuals is important. For us, entrepreneurship, we focus a lot on like the startup phase, and that initial, taking an idea from a concept to a marketable product. But I think it's important to just remember that it's all about networking, so if we don't have a specific skill set that you're in need of, I'm sure that we know somebody that does, and it's just kind of connecting those dots.
Awesome. Mark, you mentioned, come talk before you spend money, because often you make early mistakes. I'm curious for both of you, are there common mistakes that you're seeing entrepreneurs make in going through this process? Maybe early ones, maybe even later. But is there any common mistakes that you're seeing people stumble into?
Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah. There could be kind of a long list with things that are, I think the most important thing is just going out and doing, right? But there are things that we witness with students here and other community. I think one thing that comes to mind, well, several things. The first is making sure it's never too soon to, put together agreements, for a business. If you have other co-founders, I think you need to take care of that sooner than later at the initial phases of the business. I've seen a lot of people have problems as the business grows, not having determined ownership and equity stake, from the beginning. Another thing is, putting together financial projections. I know there's arguments on both sides about projections being assumptions, but to Mark's point earlier about spending money, I think it's important to know whether or not, and like the more research you do, the more you can base your projections on. But really, is your business going to be sustainable? You need to know whether or not, there's a demand for your product. And one of probably the biggest things we see a lot of times is that students will come to us or other individuals with an awesome idea. It's more of a solution, and they haven't really identified the problem that the solution is taking care of. Does that make sense? So they have like a neat gadget or something they want to take to market, but they really didn't do enough research, with their customers or potential customers to find out that that's really not something there's a demand for. So, you see that often, on the TV show Shark Tank and different things. But yeah, so agreements, making sure that how the equity is broken up in the beginning. Making sure to bootstrap, putting together financial projections, and then really making sure there's a need for the product or service you're providing.
Awesome. Mark, anything to add? Any other mistakes?
Yeah, no, I would echo Andy on that. Agreements and understandings are very important up front. That's huge, along with the other things mentioned. I think there's a differentiation between startups and companies in progress as far as mistakes made. And maybe we can address the companies in progress mistakes, in the next question. But I think as far as startups, a couple of things. One is not setting up and doing research properly up front. Two is oftentimes too much money, I think, is spent, and I've been guilty of this myself. My first couple of businesses, it's easy to do, is you spend too much money on the business and don't reserve enough for marketing and sales efforts. So right now it's easy. Everybody thinks, social media, that's really the marketing answer, right? It's all Facebook. If I get on Facebook and do some Facebook marketing ads, I'm golden, and I won't need to spend any money because I can do free marketing on social media. And some businesses really do well that way. If you have a local cupcake business, or if you have a very defined market that is active on Facebook or some of the other social media platforms, awesome. What you find, though, is not everyone is active on social media. If you're starting a company and your audience is not super active on social media, it's a whole new challenge. it's beyond the easy answer of social media marketing. So, and usually takes a lot of money and a lot of time and energy to, like, as you go out and you have to meet personally with people, and that costs money. You may exhibit at a trade show. There's just, and people tend to just put a little chunk of money in there for that when they start up. And almost every single time I've seen marketing and sales cost a lot more than initially projected.
I am nodding my head to that one because we were going to a trade show on Monday, and the trade show is expensive, but then we get an email afterwards being like, hey, if you want Wi-Fi, it's $800 for Wi-Fi. All right, and there's just a bunch of those type of things where it's way more expensive than you think.
Yeah.
Mark, something you said, and I'm curious about kind of both of your opinions on this, but I'm curious when a company kind of makes that transition from a startup into just a company, right? And obviously there's different challenges and things there, but like, where do you see that transition actually happening? And maybe kind of the similar question, what mistakes do you see in that process of going from that initial startup to more of a more long running company?
It's hard to define it because the companies are very different, but oftentimes that transition happens at profitability. So at the point that you've been investing up to a certain point, and now you're starting to get revenue stream, and now you can start bringing a few folks or start paying a few of your partners or a few of the folks, so that you start to generate enough income to start covering what you're actually doing and you're not supplementing anymore. I think that's maybe a general way to define the early stage of becoming like a bona fide company. Would you agree with that, Andy?
Yeah, absolutely. I would just, to add to that, I think learning when to delegate, right? Like, I feel like entrepreneurs are very good at wearing all the hats in a business, from the startup phase, whether it be accounting and marketing and just the daily things that need to be done. But I think, to echo what you said, Mark, maybe taking the jump and deciding to pay somebody as soon as you're profitable to take some of those things off of your plate as an entrepreneur is important. And if that works out, and it produces, produces more value for the company, then you keep on iterating and considering, who else to bring in during that process to keep on expanding. Yep. Right. So I think that profitability is a huge determining factor of kind of taking that next step.
Right. And I think as far as what mistakes, once a company rolls into that phase that Andy was just talking about, I think there's a few common mistakes that I see in people that come in to talk, and mistakes that I have personally made. One, I would say, is strategic direction. And that would involve, well, you've got, Maslow had that saying, to the man that owns a hammer, everything looks like a nail, something like that. So if you're an electrical engineer, you tend to want to solve everything electrically. If you're a mechanical engineer, you want to solve it mechanically. If you're a software engineer, you want to solve it with software. If you're a contractor, you want to build it out of wood. If you're a welder, you want to build it out of metal. It's human nature. It's what we know, so it's our go-to. But that's not always the best way to handle it. I mean, there may be cases, if you are used to building things out of wood, that building them out of metal might be better. I mean, obviously that's a rudimentary example, but and I think along with strategic decision making, it's sometimes hard to see the forest for the trees, because you get in your business and pretty soon you become pretty myopic, and you're in the trees, but you can't see the whole picture of the forest. And so you get really concentrated on the daily tasks and what's going on, and you kind of forget to hike up to that point and evaluate the forest. And so there's that. And then the third part, I think, in strategic decision making is people tend to make decisions emotionally, in the fact that they get so involved in, in what they're doing that they become emotionally tied to the business, and it's hard to make a financial decision without that emotional connection. So I think that's one, strategic decision making. Number two, being underfunded. And number three, finding the line between me too and innovation. A me too is, oh, I'm doing that too. Oh, you mow lawns? Me too. Innovation is, wouldn't it be cool to have a desk chair that has rocket boosters? And you could, it's like, okay, but we've kind of skipped a few steps of natural evolution in product marketing. So I think as far as companies, it's probably those three: the strategic vision, defining the difference between the me too and the too much innovation, and then being underfunded. And you tend to kind of overspend your underfunding investment. Those are probably the three that I would say I see the most and that I've experienced the most personally.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Andy, how about you? Have you noticed any different, besides the ones you mentioned for kind of startups, you run into any, mistakes for those mid-size or that transitioning companies?
Yeah, once again, kind of echoing what Mark's talked about, like with the whole strategy focus, I feel like a lot of times business owners don't know what they don't know. And so the comment made earlier about, networking and communicating with other individuals, even in different industries, maybe not even in the industry you're in, just always looking for more knowledge and support and help from other people who have, have different, areas of expertise, and kind of relying on that. Yeah, I think one of the big things too that like people get stuck in, business owners, is, focusing, if it's working, a lot of times you look at the bottom line, and if it's, if it's making money, and you're doing fine, a lot of times that's good enough for a lot of people. It's paying the paycheck, but always consider different ways to, increment that. I think it's important to think about other products and services you can offer, right? And being able to pivot around, and like, what are some other needs that your customers have that they're going elsewhere to have, be fulfilled, right? What could I do, in my business now, and offer, more services and products to fulfill those needs. And so, I continue is a big thing. Not just being stuck in this mentality just because like I'm in the black, I'm making money, that things are good. It could be a lot better. You just got to put forth the effort.
Awesome. Thank you. We had a few comments in the chat, and one of them I wanted to follow up on. Somebody asked, with the idea of building a team and getting good at delegating, what are the best ways to network with growth-minded individuals and entrepreneurs in Logan? And I imagine you two are a good place to ask this question, because the people who are coming to talk to you are probably wanting the same thing, right? How do you find co-founders? How do you find people that are interested in this crazy lifestyle of trying to build something? There may not be a great answer, but I'm curious for both of you, is there a way that you've found that works really well for networking for the entrepreneurs that you help? Maybe start with Andy on this one.
Yeah, I think all of us know, successful entrepreneurs and business owners. I would start there, and kind of rely on your own personal network, and then, ask, once you talk to those individuals. That's one thing, is successful entrepreneurs, there's no shortage of individuals that are willing, to talk about what they've done and accomplished, and are willing to help out, an up and coming entrepreneur with his or her own business. And so starting with your own personal network, and then asking them, if there's other areas of expertise that they don't have that you're looking for, asking them to connect the dots. It's just all about dot connecting. One thing that I might jump in and add right now, and we can talk about later, is, going to these types of events, right, where you go and meet people. I know COVID kind of put a stop to a lot of that, but we're excited because here in the Huntsman School on October 1st, we have our annual Intermountain Growth Summit. And so that's an opportunity. It's free for the public. It's an opportunity to come and network with, business leaders and entrepreneurs, and also hear from some, great minds that are going to be speaking in some breakout sessions that day. So just being up to date on what's happening around the community and individuals, I think, is a place to start.
Awesome. Mark, how about you? Do you have any recommendations for how to network?
Yeah, it can be a tough thing, to be honest, because you meet a lot of different people, but not everyone is in your wheelhouse, so to speak. So, echoing what Andy said, there are a lot of entrepreneurs. Sometimes it's hard to find them in a collected space. So I would say a couple of things. One, attend all that you can with, Chamber of Commerce events, community events, the USU Center for Entrepreneurship events, the Bridgerland Entrepreneurship Center events that we will be having. But then don't be afraid to just identify businesses in your marketplace that maybe aren't direct competitors, but maybe have been there and have some relation to your business, and go contact them and meet with them and take them to lunch and take some notes about some of the ways that they have done things. I think reaching out individually to people that you have identified is really helpful.
Awesome. Transitioning a little bit here, and just for everybody that's watching us know, I did want to be able to give a chance for attendees to ask some questions. So if you have some questions, please throw them in chat, and we'll get it out there and let Andy and Mark take a crack at them. But I'm curious from your guys' perspective, what resources were missing in Cache Valley, or would be really helpful to have in Cache Valley that you wish were here when it comes to entrepreneurship, startups, kind of all of those type of things. Why don't we start with Andy on this one?
Yeah, I think I kind of want to rephrase that question in a way to see, I think Cache Valley has a lot of resources, and we don't know what we don't know. One of the things particularly I'm excited about the incubator space, Mark, that you're going to have, because that's one of the things. I know that we've had things in the past. Co-working is in existence. I know Habitat Logan, made a run for it, but I feel like I've seen a lot of awesome, incubator and co-working spaces where people can come together and not only work on their business idea and grow it, but also, the whole point of networking and getting to know other people that could add value to your organization. But I guess, what resources does Logan have that I haven't utilized as an entrepreneur, and kind of put that, that ball in your lap. You're the one that, has to decide what the next play is. So, I mean, yeah, once again, it's kind of reaching out, but I feel like maybe all of us doing a better job, having to make a platform and letting everybody know what exists, like the Center for Entrepreneurship, the Bridgerland Center for Entrepreneurship, the SBDC, what are all these different organizations that offer these different things? Because I feel like Cache Valley does have the resources for entrepreneurs to succeed. I think it just is a lack of knowing where to find them a lot of times.
Yeah, and I would add to that. I think that's great, Andy, and I agree. I remember as an entrepreneur, I had no idea what was really going on out there. And at the time, my very first business, the SBDC was operated by someone different than it is now. I mean, Mike does a good job now, but I went and met with that person that was predecessor to Mike, and I really struggled to get any value from what was going on. And ultimately, it was just going out and talking with business people at their business and asking them questions and those kind of things that helped me. But there really are so many more resources now. So I would say absolutely tap into what's already here for sure and use that motivation. I would say the things that we can do better at in Cache Valley, and these are kind of part of my goals here at the Bridgerland Entrepreneurship Center. I think access to capital. I hear that almost daily, and it's difficult because if you're a bank, it's difficult to loan money unless you have something real to loan money against, cash flow or asset or something. Angel investors are difficult to find. So as we get more evolved and work more closely with Center for Entrepreneurship at USU, I expect we can probably try and solve that a little bit more than it currently is. I think I would love to see a little more give back attitude in the businesses that have succeeded in Cache Valley. We tend to start businesses feeling like we're an island and it's all up to us. And then as we become successful, you're still an island, you know, doing your own thing. This is probably a segment where Andy sees things a little bit differently than me, because sometimes people that have gone through the school of business, they tend to want to stay involved and give back to the university, but the rest of the community doesn't really feel that. The community doesn't necessarily feel that the successful business community is supporting them and helping them and mentoring them and maybe even getting involved financially in their business in some form or fashion. Sometimes the community doesn't feel that, and I think we could be better at that. I think as business partners, meaning SBDC, Andy, myself, Chamber of Commerce, all those things, we could probably step it up in creating additional collaboration between the resource partners, so there was maybe a little more of a hub for entrepreneurs to go to. And then I think the last one, probably more collaborative business culture in the community. I would love to see that, where we're just helping each other a little more. One thing I will say in Cache Valley, though, is I travel around and visit other folks that are in similar entities as the one I'm in other entities. In fact, I was visiting with some folks from Ogden yesterday, and they were so impressed with Cache Valley and how innovative we are here. And I think Cache Valley is an awesome place to start a business. We have so many resources with the college, the university, the businesses that are currently established here, so many resources, and people think very innovatively here. We definitely have the entrepreneurship spirit here in Cache Valley, and I love that about it. Always have. It's a great place to start a business.
Awesome. You know, as we were talking, I couldn't help think of somehow some of these conversations around resources and networking, how they connect, right? Like that oftentimes the things that we need are available if we can just make the right connections via networking. You know, with the exception of some of the things like the incubator spaces, you know, before we landed at Bridge, we used to find anywhere we could to any like open conference room we could to meet at. So sometimes that'd be us going randomly to the university and just poking around to find an open room and going in and having business meetings there. Like that definitely feels like a need, but it's also kind of being fulfilled and growing, which makes me wonder, like, what is the future for both of your organizations? Where are you guys expanding into? What more resources are you adding? And what are you excited about to be able to continue to offer? Let's start with Mark on this one.
Okay, it's a good time to answer that question. I've been working for a couple of years to try and Tetris some more space here at the technical college. And finally it's coming to fruition. So within the next couple of months, we'll be growing the footprint here and taking on an additional 4 offices. And then we're taking 4 classrooms. And so that's the first one, and I should have measured them before this conference call, but you know, they're roughly 30, 40 foot square classrooms. But the first one, we're going to divide into reception and a boardroom so that entrepreneurs can come in and use a boardroom table to meet at. And with our incubator spaces, we will begin having a monthly meeting with all the businesses that rent space here together so that the businesses can collaborate with one another. You know, if you tried this software, if you look at this new whatever, and that boardroom will be helpful for that. The second space, we're creating a share space where we'll have 4 cubicles and some tables where people can come in just for the day or half day and use a little space or meet, like you mentioned, Blake. Another space we're just having just as a straight up classroom. And then the fourth space I'm kind of excited about, I'm going to call it the Innovation Lab. So we'll have a space in here where entrepreneurs can come in and use equipment. We'll have 3D printer, a solder station, an oscilloscope, a sewing machine for outdoor products. We're gonna put in a photography corner where people can come in and photograph their products or themselves for their website, so they can have some nice professional pictures and kind of do it all themselves. So the Innovation Lab I'm kind of most excited about, but that's where we're heading. And then along with the events, we really want to start amping up the events so that we can get that collaboration between the two schools, as well as between private companies and entrepreneurs.
Awesome. Andy, how about for you guys? What's in the future?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, like a lot of our focus is student-based because of bandwidth and funding. But one of the purposes of the Huntsman School is to be an engine of growth for our community here in Cache Valley. And so one of the things that I'm excited about that we're going to continue to do, and I invite anybody that's listening in right now or the recording later on to reach out. There's an initiative that started right after with the impact of COVID called the Hope Corps, and so we formed a local chapter here, and basically a nonprofit, a 501c3, the Utah Community Builders, which is a nonprofit affiliate of the Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce, pooled some money together and gave it to the different chapters of the Hope Corps, and with the hope that these different chapters could focus on businesses and nonprofits, just different entities that had been negatively affected by COVID. And so we started that initiative last year, and we formed a team of students that were different backgrounds from different majors. We had accounting students, marketing students, graphic design students. And these individuals, we formed teams, and we, sent out an email to the community and got a response from, a number of different businesses. And these students worked with them one-on-one. It was 100% free for them. Mm-hmm. So I guess my invitation right now, that's one thing I'm excited about, is we're going to continue to do that and build on that here in Cache Valley. And so if anybody is looking, to grow their business, they've seen some negative impacts through COVID, we're here to help through the Hope Corps initiative. And like Mark said, I think just be more collaborative. We're looking forward to building on what we already have and getting more people in the community involved in our classes, and our growth summit that's happening in October. And, basically, trying to connect those dots of all those different resources we have that can help your business or entity that you're operating.
Awesome. Well, I have one question for the two of you that I'll give in a second, but I just want to point out that if anybody has any questions they want to ask here in chat, now would be the time. And while we wait to see if anybody has any questions in chat, I'm curious who else we should have invited to this thing. You guys probably know better than all of us of other people that are providing resources, they're doing things throughout Cache Valley or throughout Utah. If we were to redo this event and invite the two of you, who else should we have invited to participate?
Boy, there are many that could be on this call, really. There really are. There's the Chamber of Commerce, there's the SBDC, there's the Northern Utah Manufacturers Group. If you're in that, it starts to get specific after that. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, SCORE. Just the different, I'm just trying to think of other ones too that are kind of in the same area that we're in. I feel like there are, and Chase, posted a link to, a previous recording, an event you guys had, but I feel like, some of those resources, it's true. Like funding is a major hurdle for a lot of businesses. And I feel like, some of like the angel investment groups or venture, the smaller venture capital, those people should be brought into the discussion as well, since those are resources that are highly sought after.
Yeah, good thought.
Awesome. All right. Well, I got one last question. It doesn't look like we have any other questions in the chat. And and we're running a little short on time. So the kind of last question is, what can we as Silicon Slope, members do to try and help, right? I think in some measure, I look at it and figure like, hey, that networking piece, that could be what we're good at. And we do these events, but I'm curious if there's other ways that we could help you guys to help the people you help be successful. So there's a lot of help in that question, but I'm curious how we can help.
No, I don't know. I think having these kind of events is awesome. I mean, that's very helpful. So getting more involved in the events and helping with the events, I think would be great. And I think Silicon Slopes presents itself as a great mediator, so to speak, between all the entities. So I think that's perfect.
Yeah, and I would just add, paralleling that, just kind of disseminating information, right? Like we all have a lot of things that are going on, and you have a lot of individuals, in Silicon Slopes that could benefit from a lot of the events that we're organizing. And so just helping us get that information out there for sure.
Awesome. With that said, Andy, could you repeat just the details of the Growth Summit that's going on at Utah State in, I believe, the 1st of October, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, 1st of October, it's an all-day event. I can post shortly here a link to where you can sign up in the chat. It's free for the community, but it's an opportunity for, like I said, business leaders, innovators, just community members to come together and network, number one, be together, but also hear from some great minds. One individual that we have coming to campus is Arshay Cooper. He was involved in the first African-American rowing team. He's going to be talking about business building, business building in conjunction with team building, right? That are kind of synonymous. He was living in Chicago, and basically, the team aspect of things, he was living a life of violence that surrounded him. And then that's what kind of took him out of that, is that team building aspect with the rowing. So there's a documentary that we're going to be showing the night before, if the community's interested. It's called The Most Beautiful Thing. It's on Amazon Prime, I think, for free as well, but it's his documentary kind of focusing in on that. And then we have other individuals, individuals here from the Huntsman School that are going to be sharing, insights into, building on growth, building on brand, building on change within your organizations. And so, once again, just a great place to come together and learn what we're doing here, and hopefully, walk away with, something to better your business with, or your organization.
Awesome. Well, it looks like we have a final question in here, and I think it'd be a good one to end on. But if each of you, if it's possible, could share one kind of success story that you've helped, a company that's come, requested some help, and kind of fought their way through. We'd love to hear. I think we're always happy to hear when somebody's successful, and so if there's one that comes to mind, we'd love to hear it.
Well,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. There we go. When I was first hired on here in 2015, there was an initiative. I think a lot of you probably read $100 Startup, the book. The whole idea, the premise of starting a business with $100 and just pushing for revenue. We've been holding that competition yearly, and one of the first participants and winners of that competition. So essentially, we give students, we choose 20 businesses, give them each $100, and then within several weeks, we see how much revenue they can do. And there's other metrics that they're judged on and awarded points for. But one particular participant named Weston K as an individual that I met in that competition. We brought him into the Center for Entrepreneurship as a student intern to kind of help with marketing and bringing other people into the program. But he started a business in that competition where within a couple of weeks, he was making jewelry and like leather goods. And, basically, we're just pushing them to make revenue. He started that business, and, fast forward to now, it's, been 5 or 6 years. If you guys go, he has like a highly lucrative YouTube channel. So he pivoted. He's done a Kickstarter that did over $250,000 for like a leather harness for photographers. So the reason why I mentioned him is because that's kind of like, I feel like that's like one of the outlier examples that we don't hear about often, right? Or like these individuals that start kind of like as a sole proprietor and learn how to make something work for themselves, make revenue, and then get that confidence to move forward. But he now has employed, I think he's got a team of 5 or 6 employees. So he's supporting them, he's supporting himself, and he's creating awesome products. So Rose Anvil is the name of that. And then his YouTube channel, like I said, that appendage, it was pretty neat to see him, not be stagnant, just looking on his focus, with the success he was, experiencing at the time, realized that he's a leather, I guess, just somebody that knows so much about leather. He started deconstructing shoes on YouTube and talking about, different qualities and stuff. And that led him to something that's probably, making a lot more money that he didn't necessarily consider himself doing at the time. So there's a number of those examples with us and student startups here at Utah State, but just starting small is like the main thing. You just got to begin somewhere.
That's a great example, Andy. When you brought it up, I have stuff that Weston's made, right? Like it's, you'll find him in booths at Summerfest, all the place. Like he hustles like none other, and it's a great example. Thanks for that one, Mark. Do you have one that compete with Andy's?
That's perfect. I think, and I'm sure Andy's got a lot more where that came from, and we have a few here as well. Blake's business, Pulse for Good, is really starting to gain some traction. I'm impressed with what they're doing. I can't take credit for any of that, but the small businesses, it takes that drive to make it happen. One that comes to mind initially, there's a company that was called Okito. She came to me brand new, never run a business, didn't know what, how to get going. She had an idea to make keto-friendly cookies. And so we went through the business side of it. She started in this incubator kitchen here. Long story short, through several meetings, a lot of her pushing, making it happen. She grew to, here in this kitchen, probably 12 employees, shipping cookies and dessert type things all around the United States. And now we went through with her a partnership agreement. She got hooked up with Central Mill here in Logan to become a partner and a financial partner with her. Rebranded, it's now called NUM. You may have seen the building on 6th West, just south of Cafe Sabor. Her name's Brennan. She's a goer. I again can't take credit for her, but now she's, they've got their own space, automated packaging, tons of employees. She's really doing well.
It's awesome. It's great as an entrepreneur to hear the stories of success, and thank you guys for A, coming on and sharing it with us, but B, being there as a resource for people that are trying an incredibly hard thing. It's it can be a hard and scary thing to be entrepreneurs. You both know that, but thanks for being there as a resource, and let us know as a community how we can help. When you stumble upon somebody that has the next big idea and needs connections, please use Silicon Slopes to try and help connect people. Frankly, I think that's probably what we're best at. So thank you again for attending. Thank everybody for joining. And if there's no other further questions, we'll stick around for just a second to see if any pop up. But we'll call it a wrap for today.
During the pause, Blake, I'd just like to thank both the Bridgerland College and the USU for prioritizing this in our community. It's an awesome help. Both awesome colleges and universities.
I think sometimes we take for granted how awesome it is to have organizations like that particularly in Cache Valley. That it brings so much to the valley that would be a much different place without them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Yeah, I think I would have spent a lot less time on Google when I was starting my first business had I had those resources when I was a student. Hours and hours trying to figure stuff out on your own.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll call it a wrap. Thank you, Mark and Andy, for joining us. And remember, everybody, please attend the next one that we have on the 29th of September with Jim Cantrell. It's going to be awesome. And so we're grateful for everybody joining us today, and have a great rest of your week.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.